Welcome to the Stress Detox podcast. My name is Digestion. I am your host. I support female leaders with stress management and grief coaching, yoga, breathwork, meditation, mindfulness workshops, wellness workshops, retreats, and more. And today I have the lovely Leah Dolder joining us for a part 2 of this podcast interview. And Leah is a dietitian and fitness professional with over 15 years in the industry, supporting women with weight loss and mindset and digestion and hormone health. So today we are doing a deeper dive into hormones and digestion for women and how stress can really impact these areas of our life. So welcome back, Leah. Thank you.
So good to be here. Thank you.
Woohoo.
Woohoo. Here we go. Diving deep. I love this stuff.
Yeah. So we're going to just go straight into the content today.
Cool.
For women especially, hormone levels and digestion can be greatly impacted by stress, leading to sugar cravings, binge eating, low energy, poor sleep, weight gain, brain fog, hot flashes, constipation, IBS, and more. The list goes on. As a dietitian working in this space, what patterns do you see with women specifically in regards to stress, hormone imbalances, and digestive issues?
All right. Well, I mean, the first one, like you can see me giggling, like
I know.
what a load. Like what a load of stuff. And I'm sure when I heard that, because it's true, I'm like, oh my gosh, like the list literally goes on and on. And is everybody excited about this stuff? Yeah. Like, oh my gosh. Yeah. Bottom line, stress can affect all sorts of systems in our body.
Yeah.
And I think even the breadth of that question too, I think just bringing it back to, okay, it can affect a lot of things. And instead of freaking out and getting overwhelmed about all of this, I really like to just get back to basics and really kind of pick out with a fine-tooth comb some practical and simple ways that we can better manage life stressors. Because I don't know about you, Edie, but this is a trend that I see a lot with women that I work with. They're like, okay, Leah, like, I know what to do, but when stress hits me, I literally just shut down. It's like I totally forget about my own goals and it just is pushed to the back burner.
Yeah. It's survival mode. We just go into like old patterns and survival mode.
Yeah, survival mode. And in terms of those, old patterns, the patterns that a lot of women that I work with, their pattern when they shut down, when they're experiencing stress in their life, is they forget to eat, they think they don't exercise, and they'll push through and like hunker down, push through, and basically exhaust themselves versus doing the fueling, getting enough sleep, moving their body with intention, which are like the real strategies that are actually going to help you navigate through stress better.
Yeah.
So my whole thing is really helping women become the person who prioritizes her nutrition and her fitness in some capacity, regardless of what's happening around her. So yeah, that's a big thing for me. I can see you're like gonna say something there. What are you thinking? What are you thinking?
Oh, I just love it. I totally agree. I find with clients that I work with as well in regards to stress management, like it's exactly as you've said. It's the same sort of pattern and mindset of just push through. It's fine. I can do this. Like, what more can I stretch myself with?
Right.
just keep showing up, be that person that can do it all and can be cool, calm, and collected through it. But then things start to break down.
Mm-hmm.
And we start to become short fused in different capacities and notice things are not balanced in our body internally.
Yeah.
So there's like you said, sleep gets impacted, exercise goes out the window. It's either like not eating or what's chosen. And this is something I'm still working through is like, I'll be tired and tapped out. And I'm like, I'm just going to have a piece of gluten-free toast with almond butter. And that's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
That's also like, I could have chicken and veggies instead. So it's really being mindful of what we're turning to and then also the dialogue with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I'm so glad that you said that.
That's like that gets layered on. And I know some women, if we're not aware of it yet, then the dialogue might not be super heavy. It might just be like they're literally just doing the thing to stay alive.
Yeah.
But for others, where they have a deeper level of self-awareness and then they do an old pattern, then on top of the old pattern is likely the judgment and the shame that then just makes it all worse. So on top of then eating whatever they've chosen, then on top of not digesting it in a way that might feel good in their body, it's like creating so much more stress, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like getting more stressed out because we're stressed out.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that internal dialogue that is heavy and it's more of a beating ourselves up around like, oh my gosh, you did it again. It's like, I want to do better. And that can cause more guilt and shame. And that causes that creates a heaviness within our body as well. So I like that you brought that up because one of the biggest things, like in terms of any behavior change, becoming aware is like first and foremost, really becoming mindful about what am I actually doing here when stress or when I'm experiencing stress.
Yeah.
Or when you hear yourself say like, oh my gosh, I'm so stressed out, like, oh, I'm under so much stress or whatever you say, catching yourself, because I found this really helpful. Like, what am I thinking about? Because what I've learned around mindset and stress and all of that is if I am feeling stressed, then I'm probably thinking about a million different things. So I actually like my questions aren't like, oh, I'm so stressed. Like I don't just like leave it at that. I'm like, okay, Leah, you're feeling stress. So I like to separate that emotion from myself because I don't like to label, and I don't find it's helpful to label myself as I'm stressed.
Right.
I'm temporarily feeling this emotion.
Yeah.
But why am I feeling that? What am I thinking about? What's my internal chit chat like? What's my self-talk like? That's the question that I start asking myself.
Yeah.
So the other day when I was feeling stressed about, something, it was like, I had to ask myself, what am I thinking about? I was thinking about the unknown. It's like, what if this, what if that? I was immediately jumping to worst case scenario. So that was stressing me out.
Yeah.
I was worrying about shit that was totally outside my control.
Yeah.
And recognizing that, like being aware of like, okay, the things that I'm thinking about that are causing this feeling of stress is because I'm thinking about things in the future that aren't even real yet. And I am worrying about things that are outside of my control. So having that little real talk chit chat with myself, I call them come to Jesus meetings. Like, okay, Leah, like when you're freaking out, like let's just like have a come to Jesus meeting. What is actually going on in your mind? Stop telling yourself that you're stressed because that's not true. Like you're not stressed. The things that you're thinking about, what are those things that you are thinking about that is causing all this emotional turmoil within your body? because that emotional turmoil and that stress can really affect how we show up, right? We get overwhelmed. We're like paralyzed by fear. We don't think that we can do everything in a specific time frame. And then we get ourselves all in a flap.
Well, and then too, it's like we have a release of stress hormones in the body. So on top of that, it's like, okay, we've got the mental dialogue, and then I always kind of think of the brain as like the top, middle, and bottom parts. And so if the top
Yes.
part is the higher function and the bottom is like our animal survival brain, all of
Yeah.
a sudden, all of our ability and like all of our faculties in the top part of the brain go offline. So
Yeah.
awareness, intuition, higher levels of thinking, reason, all of that goes out the window, and all we're doing is surviving. And then
Yeah.
we have the stress hormones that are just firing through our body that are going, I'm being chased by a bear. And really, we're sitting and staring at a wall. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
they're just like over here. And then we're like, oh, so now I'm going to eat a bag of chips because
Yes.
that's going to help me self-soothe. Because right now I feel so overwhelmed, and that's what I need to ground me. And it's like, hold on, no. Where is it in that whole scenario that we can just insert a pause,
Mm-hmm.
help us come, like, just find space so that we can begin to bring the top part of the brain back online that's going to allow us to have the
Yeah.
come to Jesus meeting, that's going
Yeah.
to allow us to then go, okay, actually, right now, I need to go for a walk.
Yep. Walks are
Need
great.
to like breathe for 5 minutes. I need to actually have a meal, because part of why I'm spinning is because I'm actually really hungry, and that's creating an internal stress in my body because I didn't eat breakfast or lunch yet, and it's too
Right.
like. And also when I eat, I'm going to eat this balanced, wholesome option, not the bag of chips.
Yeah.
For me, almond butter and toast, like something that's substantial, that's going to help stabilize blood sugar and get me through the afternoon and not just crash,
Yeah.
because that will create another spike with the whole
Yeah.
cycle. So is there anything more with that you can speak to from the lens of like the dietetics and everything?
Yeah, definitely. I like what you said around, taking a pause and thinking about, okay, like I could totally do toast and almond butter. Like, sure, valid choice, right? Like that is a choice. And also inserting the pause of like, I could have toast and almond butter, or I could do, or like, how can I incorporate some lean protein, vegetables, and fruit into my diet? Because that's what I like to think about, because so many women do not get enough fiber and do not get enough protein, and not just protein, but good quality lean sources, and having even distribution throughout the day. And the great thing about fiber and protein is that they play such a big role within our mood, within our energy, within our metabolism, our body's ability to actually function the way that we need it to. It helps with our gut health, which in turn helps with our brain health and everything. So I like to, like, one of the things that I really like to do is get ahead of myself,
Yeah.
because I know that during the week, that's typically when there's more stuff going on. So
And then it's
instead of,
a thing to grab.
yeah, I like to think about setting myself up, or almost, I kind of plan for things to go sideways during
Yeah.
the week.
Yes.
And on the weekends, in my mind, I'm like, okay, Leah, what fruit, vegetable, lean protein can you prep today, like on Sunday, so that it's in the fridge, so that I can literally just grab it and like throw things on a plate, versus starting from scratch during the week? Because we talk ourselves out of making a healthy meal so fast, when we have to, like, the internal dialogue is like, oh my gosh, it's going to take so long. I have to cut up that head of broccoli. Oh, and I have to cut up lettuce. What a drag. Oh, and I have to turn on the barbecue and cut up that chicken. Like, we make it seem like this big, humongous event. And when we're feeling stressed, the idea of making a healthy dinner just seems like this mountain to climb.
Yeah.
So I started realizing that about myself like years ago. So I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I'm going to climb the mountain on Sunday instead of doing it like on a Wednesday afternoon. And the mountain is so much smaller on Sunday because I've already like relaxed and chilled and like had a great Friday night and Saturday and like, I'm in a way better headspace. So I like to think about, plan for your worst,
Yeah.
worst in quotes, plan for your worst when you're at your best.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Because that's when we're accessing the higher faculties of the brain.
yeah.
Really be like, okay, I'm relaxed, I'm at ease. It's a nice Sunday afternoon.
Hmm.
Now, like, what do I want to create? How do I want like my meals to look this week? And it doesn't have to be like, at least in my experience, because I've gone through so many restrictive protocols, I'll say, that
Yeah.
have been very dysfunctional on many levels or created a lot of, I've allowed them to create a lot of dysfunction for me.
Yeah.
So it's nice to be in a space where we're more relaxed and then can be a little bit creative, or at least take a few minutes to just
Yeah.
map out like high level, what are some things I'm going to eat this week, or what am I going to prepare so that when I'm like, I have 5 minutes right now, well, what can I grab and put in a bowl, eat,
Yep.
and go? But then also with that, because I feel you'll probably have something to say to this too, and this is something that I was called out for, is I was like the queen of eating on the go, literally, like
Mm,
walking around and eating while I do things. And it's something I still am like practicing getting better at, of like sitting and not working at the same time, or sitting
mhm.
and just eating in general. Because half the time as I'm meal prepping, I'll be eating. And someone said to me, they were like, okay, so you've got like, this was years ago. They were like, you've got all these digestive issues. So give us like a snapshot. And I was like, oh, this is like what I do. And they were like, oh my God, like, no wonder. Like, you're not even taking breaths before you eat. Like, start
Right.
sitting down and taking 5 deep breaths before you have a meal, because you're going from being
Yeah.
in a sympathetic response to trying to digest food when your gut is offline and you're not absorbing anything.
Right.
So I would love to hear your perspective on that too, because again, then from a
Yeah.
stress digestion perspective,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I've literally like real, like I am human too. Before I came on here, I'm like,
yeah,
shoveling a couple of pieces of my lunch in my mouth. So
yeah,
like, hey, like it happens to the best of us too. And I think it's like we're not perfect. And I'm like
no,
I am very we'll say diligent. It's something that I'm really mindful of like, yeah, slowing down. Slow down and actually give yourself 10 minutes to eat. It's in my calendar. Like, we'll put it that way. Like, lunchtime, there's a 15-minute block. Like, eat your lunch. So it's in my calendar. Like, that is doing something. Because I think so many of us are like, oh, well, I have to be so productive. I'm going to blast through lunch because I'm going to do more. I got to be more productive. I've got to pump out all this and that. And like, God bless all the go-getters out there. I'm one too, but I've had to prioritize and put a time block in my work calendar that says eat lunch, fuel yourself, because it is doing something. That act is so wildly productive. And I like to think about it as how the food is like serving my body. So I think like, okay, like I'm feeling human again. I can feel my brain getting fueled. I am going to be more focused. I am going to be more productive this afternoon. I almost think about, or I visualize, I know this might sound weird, but I almost visualize like what the fuel is actually doing for me. So I'm like,
love that.
yeah, so I'm thinking like, so for lunch today, I had cooked up a whack load of tofu on Sunday
Yeah,
because I just want to throw it in a bowl with some bagged slaw, and I threw some roasted chickpeas on top. So I just assembled stuff. Like, it takes 30 seconds.
Yep.
And then I think about, okay, like this tofu is giving me the protein and the omega-3s. It is helping me with fuel function. It's helping to stabilize my blood sugars. Having this now is going to help me not crave all the crap at 3, 4 o'clock this afternoon. Having this now is going to help me be way more present during this conversation. I think about what those components of food are actually doing for me. So it's like this intimate relationship with food, but in a great way. Same thing with like the vegetables too, right? Like, yeah, I did the bag slaw. Cool. Like I cut corners sometimes. You can do that.
Yeah,
And I think
totally.
about the vegetables in there. I think about because there's kale in there. I think about the dark leafy greens, the colors of the rainbow. There's some purple, I almost said spinach, purple spinach. That would be cool. Purple cabbage in there. And I'm just thinking about all the antioxidants, all the things that are helping reduce the oxidative stress in my body as it's, being digested. So I think about how the foods are actually serving me. And having, yeah, it's like this food friendship. It's like, come here, you.
I
Come
love
here,
that.
you. Get in my belly. And not even like in my belly, but it's like, work for me. Help me show up and be my best.
I love that. And I think that's a beautiful way to look at food because I think so commonly people see it as a chore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there is the like quicker fix of, okay, well, I'm just going to go to this cafe and grab this sandwich as I run out the door. And it's like, what if, or just a muffin as I run out the door with a coffee? And it's like, what if
Yeah.
we actually shift it to be like, okay, what am I actually putting in my body? What does that taste like? Can I slow down enough to taste it and not inhale it and then pause and be like, did I already eat my meal? Like,
Right.
I know I've done that before.
Oh, yeah,
Again,
I've done that too.
even,
Yeah.
but it's
Oh,
like, can
like,
we do what you said? Like this 10-minute block of just like, this is me recharging my batteries. We plug in our computers and
yes.
our phones. This is me plugging in myself for
Yeah.
10 minutes. And I'm going to actually
Yeah.
taste and visualize what I'm eating and sense all of that happening so that bam, 1 o'clock comes and I'm not like, where's my coffee?
Yeah. Keeling over, feeling lightheaded. Yeah.
Because I know for me, like I've had quite a wild journey with food and dieting and restriction and labeling things as good and bad. And
Mm-hmm.
then that whole stress shit show, excuse my
Mm-hmm.
language, of like, then when I did eat the thing, it created a whole response in my body because it had been so heavily feared or shamed.
Right.
It's like wild, the disconnect and the dysfunction. So, for me, I love that you actually have meal times on your calendar.
Yeah, I
That's
do.
that I'm going to be totally transparent with that I struggle with. Like, I don't have consistency of eating meals at the same times every day. Like, sometimes I'll eat at 10:30 a.m., sometimes I eat at noon. I don't necessarily crave first thing in the morning. I like to get up and have my own morning practice without eating right
Mm,
away. But then what I notice is, as you shared too, it's like I have to make sure I'm getting the protein in. Otherwise, my blood sugar is all over the frickin' map.
yeah.
And then I'm having afternoon crashes. And what happens is then I eat my meals later and later in the day. And then I find that I end up eating past 8 p.m., which I know is not healthy either.
Mhm.
So I love that you have it so scheduled. And with that, do you then like, and these might be silly questions, but I'm just going to ask them anyway.
Never silly.
Do
Yeah,
do you then also schedule like snack times for yourself? Because I
I
know that you're
do.
a proponent of like 3 meals a day plus snacks.
Yeah, I
Oh,
do.
I
I
love.
do. So I schedule a snack too, because I have like I'll do my breakfast within like 3 hours of waking, because I'm one of those people that wakes up. I'm not hungry like first thing in the
Yeah,
morning.
same. Yeah.
So, but it is important to get fuel. So I have, yeah, like I prioritize breakfast within 3 hours of waking. My breakfast is on my calendar, my lunch, it's around 3:30. And what really helped me as well, and this is kind of like twofold here, but the snack time in the afternoon, that served me so well because I used to be the girl that would like, oh man, I would eat in my car. I drive stick too. So I'm like one hand on the stick and I'm like trying to eat my salad at the same time is ridiculous. And
That's
if
amazing to
anybody saw me, they'd be like,
just
this chick is like out to lunch. Oh yeah. And then I would do the old tooth flossing too, like while I'm like driving stick, like ridiculous.
multitasking.
Oh yeah, yeah, ridiculous. But I would eat a big volume at lunchtime too, which also affected my gut, gas, bloating. I would eat fast and I would eat a big volume. And those are two massive things that can cause disruption within your gut. You know, like you eat really quickly and you're like not even paying attention. Your gut is like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And then you eat a big volume because you're distracted or you're like, yeah, you're not even paying attention.
Hungry because you haven't eaten
You're
enough
hungry. Yeah.
today.
So what I realized about myself is like, like you can't be eating lunch like this, driving with one hand, like stop. And then I would eat way too much. And then I also realized that my internal dialogue was like, well, you better eat this now because like dinner's like 7 hours from now. But then I'm like, why don't you just have an afternoon snack?
Right.
Which helped me a
Right.
lot
Yeah.
break it up. So what I started doing, like I actually had like lunch in two parts. So I would make a big ass salad with like lots of veggies and lean protein and some roasted chickpeas and a dressing on there. But instead of having like 5 cups of this salad, like a well-balanced salad, I would have half of it around like noon to 1 o'clock, and then I would have the other half of it as my snack. And
Yeah.
I noticed that the volume of that really helped me feel comfortable. I wasn't gassy. I had energy all afternoon. I wasn't feeling uncomfortable or bloated. So that was a big piece. I trialed that for a while. I did lunch in two parts. And then I started scaling back on the amount of volume that I would make in a salad. So I would just do like a lunch size salad, right? Like my whatever, like two cups ish. And then my afternoon snack around like 3:30, which was a protein and a fiber. And like to me, like some people might find this weird, but I literally flip flop between like the same one or two snacks for like months on end until I get bored of them and then I'll switch
Yeah.
because that just it lowers the stress of like figuring
Yeah.
out what you're going to do. When you
Yeah.
have a plan, it's like do like peas or carrots. It just makes it so easy in your
Yeah.
brain. So Greek yogurt and a piece of fruit. Cool. Protein, fiber.
Right. I love that. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I was just going to actually ask, like,
Yeah.
would you mind speaking further to how protein for women especially can really help with a lot of like the laundry list that I listed at the start in
Yeah.
terms of like binge eating, low energy, brain fog,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
even like the IBS, like so much of the gut stuff that I was dealing with, like part of it was so much unprocessed and lack of awareness of anxiety that I even had because when I'd see
Mm,
my doctor, mental health was never brought up. It was always like, oh, you have a stomach thing? Well, then we'll treat it with this. It was
right.
like, if I had known earlier about that, it would have alleviated a lot. And then two, what I found is my sister actually brought it to my awareness. So because I had so many things happening in my life and so much just like held within me in terms of the stress and anxiety, I had imbalance with my hormones. So then I was doing birth control to balance the hormones and try to clear up my skin.
Mm,
Really, all that was more linked to stress than anything else. By adding the synthetic hormone, it created more stress in my body, which actually intensified all of my digestive issues.
mm,
My sister was the one that was like, have you thought of going off of birth control to see if all of your gut stuff now improves? And it took me like 5 years of being very resistant. I was on birth control for on and off, like 8 total or a decade, I don't remember, but a while.
mhm,
Um, and I went off of the IUD December 2020. And since then, so much of my gut health has improved. And
mhm.
then I have had hormone stuff has still been touch and go. I've learned that that's partially because of trauma. So part of it could be a trauma response to the very quick death of my mom, as well as the concussion sustained in 2022, because I
Hmm.
had no period for 6 months from when I hit my head. And then
Yeah.
it's been really, really interesting. But I find it fascinating how taking out the birth control has helped so much of the digestive component, as well as having the tools that I share with everyone around the mindfulness practices of just slowing the heck down. Take
Yeah.
a breathe.
Yeah. They could
Go
be.
for a walk, whether it's around the block or whether it's an hour. It doesn't matter. Like, don't say, oh, I only have 5 minutes and I'm not going to walk. Like, do the walk and just be
Yeah.
really present to it. Um, Drinking more water, making sure I'm prioritizing sleep and not doing the hustle culture. Like, all
Mm,
of those for me have been integral.
yeah.
I'm just curious for you, like, do you notice that with women that you work with where they've maybe gone off birth control and noticed an improvement in digestion, or by adding protein has helped with hormone issues that they've been having specific to their cycle? Like, is that anything that you can speak to?
Yeah. I definitely want to speak to the nutrition piece and the lifestyle factors for sure. Yeah. So with the nutrition, I definitely see a big benefit to women's overall health, including their hormone health, when they are properly fueling their body and eating enough throughout
Yeah.
the day. Because that's another, under eating is also a stressor on your body. And when when my clients, the women that I work with, start to prioritize and actually make their nutrition like part of their day, and thinking about, because I love the combo, I just think protein and produce, protein and produce.
Yeah.
When protein and produce are part of your day, like every 3 to 4 hours, it helps massively with your hormones. And I'm going to go back to your original question around like, binge eating, appetite, like all that stuff. Protein is a really heavy hitter when it comes to supporting your hormones that play a big role within your appetite. So there's like 30 plus hormones that play a role in our appetite. There's all sorts that, stimulate our hunger. There's other ones that also provide that feeling of satiety or that feeling of fullness, right? The hormones that turn our brain on to like, hey, like we're hungry, we need fuel, like let's eat. There's those hormones. There's also the hormones that are like, yeah, we've had enough to eat, we're good. And then it's like it turns off the switch and it keeps us satisfied. We don't think about food for like hours. So what protein really helps with is those satiety hormones. So, and I hear this all the time when women start eating enough protein, especially throughout their day, and I call it the front loading, right? It's like, make sure you have your protein from like, when you're getting up in the morning to like 5 p.m. instead of like waiting until the end of the day to get this big old protein load. So what I hear time and time again from women, they're like, oh my gosh, like I feel so satisfied throughout the day. I don't even think about food.
Love that. Yeah.
I don't have any of that noise in my head that's like, what are you going to eat next? What food should I have? What food should I not have? Like, what am I like all of that just noise in your head about food that's just gone. And they're like, why? Like this is crazy. This is magic. So it's like getting enough protein, getting, like 20 to 30 grams of protein at your meals and then another like 10 to 20 at your snacks. It really helps to stabilize, or it, yeah, stabilizes those hormones. It brings down that hunger, that drive, those hormones that really like, how can I describe this? Yeah, it's like the drive. You're like thinking about like carbs and sugar and salt and all that stuff. It brings that down at the
Yeah.
same time as really helping you feel calm, satisfied, and like good to go. Like you don't even think about food for hours because you have adequate protein.
Yeah. Yeah, I love what you're saying. Just thinking of myself personally, I'm like,
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
because
So
it's
that,
yeah.
sorry, go ahead.
No, it's okay.
I was just going to say that like drastically alleviates binge eating throughout, like, especially, well, throughout the day, but especially in the evening. Because I was just talking to a client the other day. She's like, my thing is just like, have a coffee throughout the day, like maybe have some sort of a snack style lunch if I'm lucky. And then I just like go to town from 6 until like 11 o'clock. She's like, I sit, I binge, I just like eat whatever. And that pattern's so common. And that is that disrupts the hormones. But now, because we're doing my front loading technique, she's like, this is crazy. She's like, it is unheard of that I literally don't even want anything to eat after 7 o'clock. She said, because we've been prioritizing the protein and like having protein and produce throughout her day, she's like, I don't sit and have that desire to binge at night.
I love that. So, what are some examples of protein? Because I
Yep.
know some listeners might be carnivore and pescatarian and just eating all the things. And I know some
Mhm.
listeners might be more vegetarian and vegan. And that can be somewhat off-putting too, where it's like, oh, well, I don't eat meat. So,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's still so many ways to get protein. So do you have some examples? Or like
Yep.
for other listeners, like it sounds like you and myself, like I don't love eating loads and loads and loads of meat to try to get protein.
Me
And
neither.
that's part of my issue is like I'm in a calorie deficit probably most of the time. My sister called me out on it recently again, where I was like, I swear I'm eating more. And she's like, your protein is still not high enough and like da 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 da. And I was like, well, I just don't want to keep eating eggs and chicken all the time.
Yeah.
So I'd love, yeah, you to share some examples, especially if like, and this might, I don't know, like for me, I still have sensitivity with eating beans and chickpeas.
Yeah.
So if I need to eat like that or dairy, like those
Yeah.
are things that still I'm careful with. So do you
Yeah.
have, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I'll go through a list. So I'll start with the vegetarian options. And I always like to keep convenience and simplicity in mind when it comes to protein. So tofu is an awesome lean protein source, really good one. I personally like to buy the extra firm stuff so it actually holds together.
Yeah. Otherwise it's like mush.
Yeah, it's just a slop mess. So I like buying extra firm tofu. The other thing that's high in protein as a vegetarian source, tempeh. Tempeh is another good one. And like the nice thing too, when you get tempeh, it's like already like it's cooked, right? It's fermented, it's cooked. Like all you have to do is heat it up.
Yeah. And
So
like,
that's another good one. Yep. So tempeh is a really good one. Edamame or soybeans are another really awesome source of protein. You can just buy them in the frozen veggie section. They're in there with the peas and carrots, and those edamame beans, a half cup gives you 15 grams of protein.
wow, I did not know
Yeah.
that. That's so cool. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are a go-to here in my house because I'm like, oh, well, if I don't want to cook up chicken, then edamame beans, half cup, throw those in a salad. Or they're great as a snack. So edamame are a good lean protein source. Other ones, like I totally hear you when it comes to beans and lentils. Like if I had and I sat down and ate a half a cup of like beans straight, my stomach wouldn't be happy either. So I like to use beans and lentils as a topper for salads or as a little something with a snack. So I really love roasted chickpeas, roasted fava beans, roasted lentils. So Three Farmers, The Good Bean, like brands like that. So they're really great because they're already cooked, right? You don't have to roast them yourself. If you want to, have at it. But those are great protein sources too, because even in half a cup of roasted fava beans, you're getting 13 grams of protein from those.
Awesome.
Yeah. So those are some vegetarian options. Fish, like salmon, tuna, sardines, mackerel, trout, all of those are really great lean protein sources. And I've been on the canned salmon train. Like I
Yeah.
get, yeah, good
Got
old
on
canned
the can-
salmon.
I just got on the canned tuna train again, and I haven't since
Nice.
like forever, but with like lime juice and a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. I'm like, this
So
is
good.
delicious.
So good. Such
Ah,
a quick protein source. Because the great thing about tuna and salmon packs now is that they have those little peel off tops. So you don't even have to pull out the can opener, which is great. So those are awesome because even with those little cans, they're like a 2 ounce size with the peel off top. Those are 15 to 18 grams of protein.
awesome. Yes.
So
Those
throwing
are good.
that on a salad. The bigger cans, like the standard can of tuna is about 30 grams of
Awesome.
protein. So that's a good one. Um, shrimp. Shrimp is another awesome lean protein source. So something that I like buying, and I'm thinking, because at the time of this recording, we're in August, but shrimp rings, like
Yeah.
any social event that you go to,
Right.
because
And then they're
people always bring
filling. Otherwise, it's freaking chips and like salsa
chips and
or
party mix.
anything.
Yeah, chips and party mix and 2 bite brownies. Like you can bank on those being everywhere. So if I'm thinking, all right, protein and produce, because that stuff's probably not going to be in a social situation, I'm the one bringing a shrimp ring and a veggie tray. So
Yeah.
shrimp rings are awesome. And you can buy them for yourself because how easy is it? They're already cooked. Like
Right.
you
And
get a
then you
shrimp
pop
ring,
it in the fridge and take
you
some out.
have it in the fridge, and those are an excellent lean protein source, and they're already cooked. So it's good. Um, Switching gears into dairy. So everybody has their own sensitivity with dairy. Like me, I do just fine with dairy. And yay. I am one of my go-tos every day is having Greek yogurt or Icelandic yogurt. And I like doing the 2% milk fat or less. Because that stuff, like you get 3/4 of a cup of that, you're looking at 20 grams of protein right there. Same thing with cottage cheese. I like throwing cottage cheese in smoothies or shakes because a half a cup of cottage cheese gives you about 15 to 18 grams of protein.
Yeah.
So that's a good one for dairy. Even some milks too. Like I don't know a lot of women that would sit and have a full glass of milk these days. Like I'd have it in like tea or, things like that. But like a cup of soy milk gives you 8 grams of protein. Other like high protein milks, like the only other plant milk that would give you a lot of protein would be like an almond milk with added protein in it, like the Silk brand or the Soy Good. They now have one that an almond milk with protein, because like oat milk, rice milk, cashew milk, almond milk, they don't have any protein in them.
No. And then they just have a lot of sugar instead as well from
Yeah.
like actual nut or oat.
Yeah, they're typically sweetened. So look for the unsweetened, soy milk or the unsweetened almond with protein in it. Switching gears into more animal protein. So eggs are a good protein source, and egg whites too. Like you can buy the egg white cartons; those are great. Other things like chicken, turkey. If you're doing beef, like I'll still do a really nice piece of beef. Like, I don't know, maybe once every couple of weeks, we'll do like primo steak. So I like doing steak, or doing a lean ground beef. Or if you're doing pork, like pork is considered a red meat, so eat it less often. But pork tenderloin, like that's a lean cut, like lean protein. So those are some protein foods.
Yeah. Well, and I love too, I think you had it on Instagram yesterday. You had an example for instead of chips and guac, where you're like, I
Yeah.
love this
Yeah.
as a party option, but it has no protein. And then you were like, do you want to say what you add to it? I'll let you. I think it's awesome.
Yeah, my good old guac hack. So this came about when I was living in Costa Rica last winter, because I'm like, what am I going to eat that gives me protein? So instead of just doing guac and chips, I
Yeah.
would add boiled eggs to it. So I boil up a bunch of eggs, chop that up, throw that in there, and then I would put some black beans and some salsa into the avocado mix. So now you've got like this seriously bulked up guacamole. And instead of just having the guac with chips, I started using veggie sticks as the chip. I still had a couple of chips with it, but it's like, okay, what else can I do? Like produce, right? Like what kind of produce can I bring in? So I would cut up like big, thick slices of bell peppers as like my chip.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, that's what I would do.
and so do you find then, because it sounds like, just from what you're sharing, it sounds like you eat very minimal amounts of like grains and starches. Is that because part of those are um like they can create stressors on the body? Like I know like corn is so genetically modified that
Mm.
eating a lot of like corn chips can be really taxing on the body. And I know that like even eating like gluten-free products, like all of
Mm.
the what's that brand that I'm thinking of? It's like in my cupboard. Anyway, there's like the gluten-free crackers that we buy a lot that are the seed crackers, but
Yeah.
like even those are not like the best for us. And so there's a lot of discrepancy, I guess, and this kind of flows into the next question around like what are some misunderstandings, I think, around food and labels and trends that we see that can
Yeah.
create a lot of stress and upset in digestion and hormones, even if we think we're doing the right thing.
Mm.
Because like even thinking of the non-dairy milk, like for me personally, I do not touch it unless I make my own almond milk, where I chuck some almonds with like filtered water, cinnamon, and a touch of sea salt in the blender, and I
Nice.
blend it up, and then I literally use that for whatever I'm going to do that with. Because if you read the label of any of those products, most of them have so much stuff in them that literally is not natural to the body or anything else. It's like you might as well drink the cup of milk.
Mm.
Like it's so interesting. And so same with gluten-free products and just other starches. So I'm just curious, like, is that why you eat so much less of it? Or is it just that our body really doesn't need as much as maybe we've been like trained to believe when we look at like the Nutrition Guide of Canada that personally I feel is super out of balance for
Outdated.
the
Yeah.
average person and really
Yeah.
outdated. Like I would love to hear more of that because that's something too
Yeah.
that like I used to really reduce that and then it was too extreme. So then it was I had to reintroduce it and now I'm finding my balance with it. But I would love to just hear a little more on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So personally, what I have found works for me is given myself guilt-free passes around, like I say this in quotes like treat foods or foods that might not have like the highest nutritional value or, yeah, like have some extra ingredients in them, but I just give myself a guilt-free pass to have some of those foods. I like to think of it as eating the majority of my choices are whole foods, wholesome foods, things that grow from the ground, right? Like really getting back to basics that way. But I also like to say, all right, Leah, well, you're not perfect, and to just reduce some of my own stress around eating perfectly because it's just like that doesn't even exist. I just say, you know what? I am eating like 90 to 95% of the food choices that I have are wholesome, great foods. If I want to go have like pre-made almond milk or like ice cream with like, I don't
Yeah.
know, a little bit of palm kernel oil in there, like whatever, I'm going to have a little bit of that. So I find that is actually really helpful to me because at the end of the day, I'm just like, hey, you know what? I got myself covered. Having 90%, 95% of my diet from wholesome foods, like we're okay. So I find that alleviates some stress in my mind. The other thing around like grains and stuff like that, I've decided like what really shifted my decision around that because I used to have I would eat like all sorts of cereals and like, white bagels and or like the cinnamon sugar bagels and things like that. And what really shifted my consumption patterns around that was not necessarily like what was in them, like that played a part, but it was also like, how is this actually serving me? Having a white bagel, that's not, it's, I'm not getting any further ahead by having a white bagel because I know it's going to go right through me. It's going to spike my blood sugar. I want something different than that. So I'm going to choose like a protein rich smoothie with some berries and maybe some chia seeds in there instead. So for me personally, like, do I eat a lot of bread products? Not really. I choose to get my carbohydrates from fruits, from starchy vegetables. So, like, I'm a potato gal. I love my sweet potatoes. I love starchy vegetables like beets. I like whole grains like quinoa, like couscous, like bulgur, like that, those types of things. I choose to get my carbs from that versus like crackers and
Yeah.
breads and rice and stuff like that. So, what's helped alleviate stress in my life around food and getting caught up in the, the trends and the gimmicks, and like, honestly, I find it's like a lot of fear-based stuff online. It's like, this seed oil is going to kill you. It's like, okay, like, all right, let's look into this a little bit, a little bit. I like to just ask myself, like, how much of this am I actually eating? Like, once in a while, like, yeah, I'll have a product with a little bit of seed oil, but it's like the 10th ingredient in the food. So I just give myself that wiggle room. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, I know this isn't like a top-notch choice, but like, whatever.
Right.
I have it
Right.
once in a while.
Yeah. No, I love that. And I love hearing that you do eat like potatoes and sweet potatoes and couscous and quinoa. Because I
Mm.
think it's really important. Like I love sweet potatoes, and when potatoes are in season, they're like coming into season now. Like they're so good. And like with
They're
barbecue
so good.
summer meals, and like I'll often like roast them and then I just sprinkle them in salads.
Yeah.
Um, and I do that if I make quinoa or whatever as well. So it's nice to hear that. So I'm just curious, like within what you're eating during a day, if we're thinking of like the female body and hormones
Yeah.
as again, what like portion would you
Mm.
suggest? Like what
Yep.
percent would you suggest is more of those starchy sorts of foods?
Yep. Yeah. So best practice recommendations, and we know like for overall good health, getting about 40 to 50% of your daily calories from carbohydrates. And carbohydrates don't just equal bread and rice and pasta. Carbohydrates come from all sorts of food. Carbohydrates, fruit is a carbohydrate. Potatoes are a carbohydrate. Like oatmeal is a carbohydrate. There's even carbohydrates in Greek yogurt. So I like to remind women especially that cutting carbs is not a smart idea.
Yeah.
And in terms of portions, I love using our hands because like they're pretty proportionate to our body and they're not going anywhere anytime soon. So I like using a closed fist. When you look at the size of your fist, that would be about a portion of, carbohydrate. So, you have about a fist size of like mixed berries in your smoothie. When you have a potato, instead of going for the sweet potatoes that are literally the size of your forearm, like go for the ones, or like cut that thing in two or three, think about your fist size. Same thing, like, oh man, I always get like so many eye rolls when I say this around pasta, but like, if you're doing like a whole grain pasta, or you're doing spaghetti, or you're doing like chickpea pasta, do the old fist rule. And they're like, what? Like pasta? No, only a fist? But instead of thinking about pasta as like the main event on your plate, because it's so easy to do like a mound of pasta, then you've got 3 cups worth of pasta on your plate. You're like, oh, I'm so tired and I ate too much afterwards, you know? Instead of it being the main event on your plate, think about it as the side piece. So when I do spaghetti, I'm doing some spaghetti, but I'm also throwing a salad in there. I'm also throwing some ground chicken or like some lean ground beef in the sauce with some big chunks of mushrooms and peppers. So it's not just pasta and red sauce on my plate. It's more balanced with other things. So good old fist size, the rule of fist. Um, Same thing when it comes to, you know, your oatmeal. Think about like cup cooked, all that stuff. Use your fist.
And
Yeah.
is that something then as well? Would you say that you're suggesting that is like per meal or like one meal a day is like that in terms of oatmeal, sweet potatoes,
Good
pasta?
question. Yeah. Yeah, good question. In my mind, I like to think about having a carbohydrate at each meal for sure. Um, and carbohydrate again could be piece of fruit, starchy vegetable, it can be whole grain. So in the morning, you know, I'm like, okay, fist size, like it's going to be fruit because that goes in my smoothie. There's my carbohydrate there. At lunchtime today, I had some leftover roasted sweet potatoes that I threw on my salad with, you know, my tofu. So I'm thinking about that. And then for dinner tonight, what are we doing for dinner? Because I planned it out, like I planned out dinner. Oh, we're doing salmon cakes. So we're doing salmon cakes with a quinoa salad on the side. So I'm thinking, okay, yeah, about fist size of quinoa salad, and there's some veggies and stuff in there with the salmon cake. So does that answer your question?
Yeah, I
Okay.
love it. Yeah, I just think it's super helpful for our listeners to hear because
Yeah.
I find sometimes we can think, oh, and again, this was me. I used to be like, oh, I'm only allowed that one meal a day, like specifically in
Ah,
relation to the um, starchier carbs and grains, not necessarily fruit, but more the potatoes, the sweet potatoes, and the grains. And so
yeah.
I think it's important to recognize that it isn't just those things, and also that like it does come throughout the day, and smaller portions more consistently is better for women, especially for blood sugar stabilizing hormone
Yes.
in the whole stress cycle that we spoke about. So
Yes.
we're coming to an end with this whole conversation, but is there anything else you'd like to leave for listeners to be aware of or to remember from this conversation today?
Oh man. Well, I have to say I've really, really enjoyed this conversation. And I think a lot of us get in our mind around, and we stress ourselves out around having this ideal, or we have this unrealistic vision of what healthy eating looks like. And it's easy to get caught up when we see so much online or what, you know, everybody else is doing and these influencers and stuff. And I just want to say, like, perfect eating does not exist. Perfect eating does not exist. Healthy eating, you do not have to be Susie Homemaker in order to eat healthy. I will be the first to tell you that, like, and I think I said this on the last episode, but I'm a dietitian, but I don't get any enjoyment out of cooking. So if that makes everybody feel better, like I get zero enjoyment out of cooking. So I am like quick, dirty, just give me the components of a meal, cut corners, I'll buy the bag salads. I will have ice cream once in a while, you know, like I like to think about, okay, well, healthy eating can include bag salads, not making every single meal from scratch, and you know, allowing yourself your favorite foods, because it really comes down to sustainability. And if you cannot imagine your life without I don't know, like deep fried dill pickles once in a while, or if you can't imagine your life without like primo quality chocolate a few times a week, well, then that's all right. Like you can have those foods. Food is something to enjoy. It's something to celebrate, and it is fuel for not just your body, but it's fuel for your mind. And it's so much like it just fuels your everything, like your mind, your body, your potential, your profits, your
Impact.
whatever.
Yeah.
So allowing yourself, or just like maybe letting go a bit of the stress that you hold around food, and just having more of the like, you know what? How, like, does this matter that much? Does it matter that I have like this perfectly put together meal for my family tonight? Like, it's okay to not have these perfect meals because it doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
That's my final thought.
Love it. Yeah. I think it's really just like giving ourselves grace.
Mm-hmm.
And not giving ourselves grace to take ourselves off the hook to like eat all the crap, but just giving ourselves grace through the process of figuring out like what does healthy eating mean to me, and how can I start to schedule more consistent snacks and meals, and where can I find the courage to sit with myself around some of the deeper judgments that might arise as I
Mm-hmm.
make these changes in my life, or as I'm starting to shift how I am eating and approaching food. And can I remember that this is all human and normal, and it's not just like me, everyone who like we're all navigating it. So
Yeah.
it's okay if we stumble along the way and we just keep going and doing our best. And I think ultimately too, something you shared as well, it's like there's so much information, it can be so overwhelming. And something that you and I both really love is like, can we have the pause? Can we check in? Can we have those come to Jesus moments of like, what do I actually like? What am I thinking? And what do I need right now? Because so often something I share with clients is like, I'm not giving you the answers. Like, you know what you need. It's can you
Yeah.
give yourself the space and then trust what comes through to follow the intuitive hit to go for the carrot instead of the bag of chips.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because if we get quiet enough, we notice that what we're craving isn't actually what we're craving.
Yep.
Deep down, what we're craving is all the other things that you've already spoken to. So I just
Mm-hmm.
think that's really beautiful. So thank you so much for your
Mm-hmm.
time and your
My
knowledge and your
pleasure.
passion. Like, oh, it's been such an amazing conversation.
Yeah.
For everyone listening, as always, please download, like, and share and comment on this episode. And I will include links to connect with Leah in the show notes. Is there anything you'd like the listeners to know about just before we sign off in terms of like any upcoming program or thing that you've got going on?
Yeah. Yeah, thanks for asking. Yeah, so I'm taking new clients for, well, it is the middle of October. It's August when we're doing this right now, but I'm taking new clients for the fall. And
Yeah.
I just launched a new coaching program. So my bread and butter, I've got the Reclaim coaching program that helps high achieving women really skyrocket their energy, achieve lasting weight loss, and really connect with their body. So I've got the Reclaim coaching program. I'm taking clients for that. And I also launched a program called Fuel. So Fuel is for female entrepreneurs, business owners that the weight loss is not a goal of theirs, but they just are sick and tired of feeling like a shell of a human, and they want to fuel their body. They want to see how great they can be because they've dialed in their nutrition, their fitness, their sleep. Because honestly, your nutrition and your health is the health of your business. And if you want to perform and impact and expand and grow in your business, like, girl, you need fuel to do it. So Fuel program is just launched, and there's a ton of mindset and business coaching within that too. So check me out on Instagram. I'm on there like every day. So Leah Van Dolder. And then my new website will be launching in the next couple of weeks. So leahvandolder.com.
Yay! Oh, that's so exciting. Well, congrats on those.
Thank
And
you.
I will again include those in the show notes here. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in and listening. I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, week, wherever you are. And I will see you again soon. Okay, bye.